Carlos Sainz has been appointed as the new director of the GPDA. He takes over from the role that Sebastian Vettel fulfilled until a couple of seasons ago. Carlos Sainz will work alongside the likes of George Russell, Anastasia Fowl and the chairman Alex Wirtz. The GPDA put out a statement just earlier on today talking about welcoming Carlos Sainz to the director and how he was going to step into that role vacated by Sebastian Vettel. Hashtag Racing United for our safety, our sport and our fans. Carlos Sainz put out his own statement as well. I am passionate about my sport and think we drivers have a responsibility to do all we can to work with the stakeholders to forward the sport in many aspects. So I'm very happy and proud to do my part by taking on the director's role in the GPDA, as well as Alex Wirtz, who said he is delighted to welcome Carlos as a GPDA director. He has been active and an engaged member for several years. We sincerely appreciate his commitment in stepping up to this vital role. Now, a lot of people may not know what the Drivers Association is, and essentially it's all the drivers that are put together who work together to try and fulfill ways that can make Formula One better and safer for not just the drivers but also those fans that are watching. And the GPDA essentially is the protection for the drivers against the FIA and Formula One and things like that if something was to happen. Now, we go back a few years to when Pierre Gasly had that incident with the tractor on the track, and he had a real big problem with that for obvious reasons if we look back to the situation regarding Jules Bianchi. And it's one of those for me where I think the GPDA has a massive impact on what's going on in Formula One. However, I think in recent years it's become a very lesser important narrative to be able to push and talk about, because the FIA, it's ran by an egotistical man who doesn't really allow for conversation. If you don't agree with him, then you're wrong. And that's essentially the situation. A lot of you will have seen yesterday the statement that they put out in regards to the booing at the Formula 1 75 event, where they released the car liveries in regards to Christian Horner and Max Verstappen. It's funny though how they have no mention about the booing of the FIA as well. Obviously something which they're wanting to keep on the low. But obviously the big question here is, what can Carlos Sainz do? What can George Russell do? What can Alex Wirtz do? What can Anastasia Fowl do? And for me, there's not a great deal that any of them can do. They can put out statements, they can put things forward, but ultimately, the FIA doesn't really answer to them. There's nothing that the FIA can do to sort of... there's nothing that they can do to force the FIA to do things. And we talk about this swearing ban where you're potentially going to get banned for races if you swear over team radio or in press conferences and things like that. And at the end of the day, these drivers are adults. Yes, they're role models, but they're adults at the end of the day. And they need to be treated as such. If you are swearing or whatever in the heat of battle, then it's not down to them for that not to be broadcast. It's down to the broadcasters. And that's something that the FIA needs to tighten up on, not on the drivers themselves. The drivers have to be able to speak freely. They have to feel comfortable, because if you're silencing the drivers, then you're just causing a massive, massive problem for not just the drivers, but also for the sport in general. And it's something which I don't want to see. Now, obviously, yesterday, that FIA statement, which I mentioned, which came from the FIA in regards to, obviously, the booing of Max Verstappen and things like that. And I'll just read it out to you now. An FIA spokesperson said, "Great rivalries throughout the history of motorsport have contributed to making it such an exciting experience for the fans. But what underpins sport at all levels is a culture of respect. As such, it was disappointing to hear the crowd tribalist reaction to FIA Formula One World Champion Max Verstappen and his Red Bull team principal and CEO Christian Horner at the F1 launch in London. Max and Christian have both contributed greatly to the sport we love, and in the season ahead we should not lose sight of that. As part of the FIA's commitment to protect the integrity of the sport, we are leading a coalition tackling online abuse in sport under the banner of our United Against Online Abuse campaign. We stand with all our competitors, officials, volunteers and fans to unite against the growing threat. We urge the sport community to consider the impact of their actions online and offline." Now, for me, if you know anything about sport, you know that booing has always been a thing. It's been a thing in Formula One for decades. It's been a thing in Formula One since the dawn of time. And the question really is, why is it such a bad thing that it happens to Max Verstappen and it happens to Christian Horner? Because at the end of the day, Max Verstappen has put out publicly on the team radio racial slurs. He has backed a racist man who has been racist towards Lewis Hamilton, and he races for one of the most toxic teams on the grid. Christian Horner has a ton of allegations against him regarding sexual assault, sexual harassment, and has made some pretty poor comments of his own. So it's one of those for me where in sport there's always a villain, and Red Bull are that villain because of the way they act, the way they put themselves forward, the way they treat other people, and the way they talk about other people. And a lot of people within the FIA, within Formula One, seem to often forget the comments Max Verstappen made about Lewis Hamilton a couple of years ago when it comes to the booing. Oh, he should just close his ears. Well, why is the FIA not sort of putting out statements when Lewis Hamilton booed, when Charles Leclerc's booed, Lando Norris, George Russell, whatever? Why are those statements not coming out then? It's very, very interesting that this has happened after it's been to Red Bull, Max Verstappen, because I think it just shows the circumstances we find ourselves in, where the FIA and Red Bull are very much in cahoots. And many people may disagree with that. Many people may think it's just pure conspiracy. But you look at the way Red Bull have been treated in comparison to other teams, and how anybody who talks against Max Verstappen or punishes Max Verstappen to a large extent ends up gone. Johnny Herbert. You've got pretty much the entire F1 punditry team that has been replaced over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, all because of comments they've made about Max Verstappen since that 2021 championship and even prior to that. And it's very, very disappointing to see Formula One go this way, especially the way that the FIA are handling things, and the way that the media doesn't seem to ever sort of argue back against it, don't seem to ever put their points across. And it feels like we're very much in an era where the media are sort of directed in what they have to say, and it's very, very disappointing to see. And hopefully one day we'll be able to move forward and have a new FIA president who allows freedom of speech again and allows people to speak on things they want to speak on and things like that. You look at the likes of Lewis Hamilton, you look at the likes of Sebastian Vettel, who have been massive in putting those points forward. You even look at someone like Pierre Gasly, who made it very clear during that tractor incident, I think it was at Suzuka, that these things shouldn't happen, and he spoke about it massively, because if someone had crashed into that tractor, we've seen things that have happened in the past, and we obviously don't want those things to happen again. Now, is anything going to change in Formula One over the course of the next 12 months? Probably not. Is anything going to change in Formula One over the course of the next 18 months? Again, probably not. The only thing that we can hope for in 2025 is a new champion, a competitive season, and hopefully that will spark conversations about other things. However, I personally believe that all a competitive season is going to do is spark debate around the ability of Max Verstappen, which is going to lead to further animosity within fan bases, and it's going to lead to further booing and further restrictions from those drivers and the fans. And it's going to be interesting. What will the FIA do about this booing, and what can Carlos Sainz do to combat it as a driver? Obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, hit the like button as well. I'll catch you down in the comment section. I do reply to every single comment, so I'll catch you in my next video.